Hi, I'm Brian Brightbill, and in this Kaplan MCAT Science Review video, we'll be exploring the anatomy of the cardiovascular system. In order to do this, we'll be looking at the system as a whole before we explore the structure of the heart and the blood vessels, and follow the blood as it circulates through the body. Our learning goals for the day are to identify the primary structures of the cardiovascular system and explore the functions of those structures. This will allow us to answer questions like the one at the bottom of your screen, asking about how pressure changes in relation to a blockage. The cardiovascular system consists of the heart, which is the organ responsible for pumping blood throughout the body, and the blood vessels, including the arteries, which carry blood away from the heart, the veins, which carry blood towards the heart, and the capillaries, which connect the arteries to the veins. The heart has a right side and a left side. The right side pumps the blood to the lungs and back. This is what is known as pulmonary circulation. The left side of the heart pumps blood to the body and back. This is what is known as systemic circulation. Both the right side and the left side of the heart share common chambers. The right side and the left side of the heart both have atria, the right atrium and the left atrium. The atria are responsible for receiving blood from veins. The right atrium receives from the superior and inferior vena cava, whereas the left atrium receives from the pulmonary veins. The blood flows from the atria into the ventricles. The ventricles are the right ventricle and left ventricle. The left ventricle empties into systemic circulation through the aorta. The right ventricle enters into pulmonary circulation through the pulmonary artery. Structurally, the atria are thinner walled than the ventricles because as they're receiving blood from veins, they don't experience as high a pressure as the ventricles do. The ventricles, since they are pushing the blood out of the heart, have thicker walls. The left side of the heart also tends to be more muscular, thicker walled than the right side of the heart because the circuit, the systemic circulation that the left side of the heart pumps into is larger than the circuit for the right side of the heart, pulmonary circulation. When passing from the atria into the ventricles, the blood passes through the atrioventricular valves. On the right side of the heart, the tricuspid valve separates the right atrium from the left atrium. On the left side of the heart, the bicuspid or mitral valve separates the left atrium from the left ventricle. A convenient mnemonic for this is LAB-RAT. Left atrium bicuspid, right atrium tricuspid. To go from the ventricles into the arteries, the blood passes through the semilunar valves. The pulmonary semilunar valve empties the right ventricle into the pulmonary artery. The aortic semilunar valve empties the left ventricle into the aorta. In order to coordinate the contraction of the heart, there are 4 electrically excitable structures involved. The SA node sends a signal through the atria, coordinating contraction of both atria. While the ventricles for the most part fill passively, this signal through the SA node to the AV node can account for 5 to 30% of the overall cardiac output. The AV node is located at the junction of the atria and the ventricles. From the AV node, the signal travels down the bundle of His, which is embedded in the interventricular septum or wall, and travels to the Purkinje fibers. These Purkinje fibers distribute the signal throughout the ventricular muscle. These muscle cells are connected with intercalated discs, allowing for coordinated contraction of the heart. One mnemonic for this is start a blood pump. S for SA node, A for AV node, B for bundle of His, and P for Purkinje fibers. Each of these electrical signals causes a heartbeat, and heartbeats are made of 2 parts. The first part is systole or contraction. In systole, both atrioventricular valves close, causing the lub of the lub-dub sound of the heartbeat. And the ventricular walls contract, causing the blood to flow out of the ventricles into the pulmonary artery and the aorta. Following systole is diastole. In diastole, the heart relaxes. The ventricles expand, allowing blood to flow in from the atria as the atrioventricular valves open. At the same time, the semilunar valves close, causing the dub in the lub-dub sound. Each heartbeat containing both systole and diastole will pump out a certain amount of blood known as the stroke volume. The stroke volume is the volume of blood pumped per beat. If we combine that with the heart rate, the number of beats per minute, we can determine the cardiac output. Cardiac output is heart rate times stroke volume. For a normal person with a heart rate of somewhere between 60 and 100 beats per minute, this results in approximately 5 liters per minute of cardiac output. Now let's leave the heart and explore the blood vessels that transport the blood through the body. First, carrying blood away from the heart are the arteries. The arteries branch off to the arterioles, which are connected through the capillaries to the venules, and the veins carry the blood back to the heart. Arteries, capillaries, and veins all are lined with endothelium. The endothelium is responsible for releasing chemicals that aid in vasodilation and vasoconstriction. They also allow white blood cells to pass through them as part of the inflammatory response. And finally, the endothelial cells also release chemicals when damaged that allow for clot formation so that the blood vessel can be repaired and the bleeding can be stopped. Arteries always carry blood away from the heart, and most of the time arteries carry oxygenated blood. The exceptions to this are the pulmonary artery and the umbilical arteries, which carry deoxygenated blood, and exceptions like that are very important to know for the MCAT. The arteries are necessarily muscular and elastic. The reason for this is so that following the heartbeat, when the semilunar valves close, the arteries will be forced to expand as the high pressure forces the blood into the arteries, but then their elastic recoil will continue driving the blood forward through circulation. This necessitates that the left side of the heart is more muscular, as there are more arteries and arterioles in systemic circulation than pulmonary circulation. On the other hand, veins carry deoxygenated blood, except for the blood of the pulmonary and umbilical veins. Veins are thin and inelastic, so they do not expand, but they will change shape. As they fill with blood, they will become more circular. The veins do have one-way valves to prevent backflow. Skeletal muscle will also prevent blood from flowing back through the veins. For instance, the quadriceps of the legs will continue helping the blood move upward through the legs, returning to the heart. And the veins contain up to 3/4 of the blood volume. The reason for this is that blood is moving more slowly through the veins, so like a traffic jam, slow movement results in greater volume. Capillaries are very small, and nearly all of the cells in the body are vascularized, meaning that they are adjacent to a capillary. Capillaries are so small that red blood cells must pass through them in single file. They're small, and they have very thin, single cell layer thick walls in order to allow gas, like oxygen and carbon dioxide, nutrients like sugar, and waste like ammonia and urea, among many other things, to exchange between the blood and the tissues that need to gain the nutrients and dispose of waste. We've been through a lot now with the cardiovascular system, so let's end with looking at one piece of very important test day knowledge: the path of the blood through the body. We will begin with the right atrium. Beginning in the right atrium, blood flows through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. From there, the blood passes into the pulmonary artery. From the pulmonary artery, the blood enters the lungs, becomes oxygenated, then returns to the heart through the pulmonary veins into the left atrium. From the left atrium, the blood passes through the bicuspid into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the blood enters the aorta and enters systemic circulation, where it carries the oxygen out to the body, exchanges through the capillaries, and returns through the veins to the heart. The deoxygenated blood then re-enters the right atrium through the superior and inferior vena cava, therefore bringing us back to where we started. This leads to the first of our questions. It is important to note that increases in pressure go immediately before a blockage, while decreases in pressure immediately follow a blockage. Given that this is a blockage of the pulmonary artery then, take a moment to choose the right answer. So in this case, the correct answer is the right ventricle. Now take a moment to answer question number 2. Going through these Roman numerals, we can see for Roman numeral 1 that veins do have one-way valves. Roman numeral 2, they're not surrounded by a thin layer of smooth muscle. That was arteries. Roman numeral 3, they contain about 3/4 of the body's blood, not 1/3. And for Roman numeral 4, the arteries were the more elastic of the two. That means the correct answer is A, one only. These are the parts of the cardiovascular system that are most likely to show up on the MCAT. First of all is the path of the blood. We begin in the right atrium, then pass through to the right ventricle. The right ventricle enters in the pulmonary artery, which is one of two arteries that carries deoxygenated blood, and goes to the lungs to become oxygenated. The blood then returns through the pulmonary vein, which is one of two veins to carry oxygenated blood, and enters the left atrium. From the left atrium, blood flows into the left ventricle, and then out into systemic circulation through the aorta. The aorta leads to the arteries, which lead to the arterioles, which enter into the capillaries, where exchange occurs. The capillaries collect into the venules, which empty into the veins, and back through the superior and inferior vena cava into the right atrium, getting us back to where we started. We also want to know about the structure of these various types of blood vessels. First, arteries, we want to know, are thick and muscular. They do not have valves, and they're elastic. We want to know that the veins are thin and not as muscular. They do have valves to prevent backflow, but they are inelastic. And capillaries, the site of exchange, must be of a single cell thickness. They don't have room for smooth muscle or valves, and they are also definitely not elastic. And finally, we want to know the path of electrical conduction through the heart. The mnemonic for this was start a blood pump. The SA node to the AV node to the bundle of His to the Purkinje fibers. Thank you for joining me on this lesson on the anatomy of the cardiovascular system, and congratulations for getting one step closer to that white coat, and best of luck to you on test day.